Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dayakaram Dayakaram Dantam Dharma Pravartakam Pranamami Dayanandam Madacharya Varam Param. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Vasudevendra Yogendram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate Sarva Vedānta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satgurum Pranatosmyaham. So we are seeing the combined verses of Tattvabodha and Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. So we have finished now a section which is the sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi, or the preparation of mind, the various sadhanas to prepare the instrument to know, for knowledge. And we saw also that out of all the sadhanas, Shankaracharya and Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ had singled out two particular sadhanas, two particular qualifications, which are very necessary to bring in all the others. So he says vairagyam and mumukshutvam, which are very important for bringing in everything else as well. So vairagyam is a dispassion towards pursuits that we usually have in the world. And that dispassion is born of understanding. It is not born of disgust, or it's not born just because the Shastra says so. There are many reasons people think they have dispassion, but this dispassion that we are talking about is born out of knowledge, is born out of understanding. So that is a very important, he says, one of the most important things in spiritual life, to gain the dispassion after doing some inquiry, discriminative analysis of what one really wants. Then we have mumukshutvam, he also, we saw last time, which is the, burning desire for moksha. It should become a burning desire to understand the truth, to understand that why I'm here. I'm born on this planet. There is a certain reason for my birth. And that reason is given in the scriptures as the discovery of completeness, discovery of fullness. So today we're going to see a new topic. And this is the reason why we qualify ourselves. So Krishna in, why the qualifications, just to recap, the Karma Yoga lifestyle Krishna talks about, which includes all of these values, is the right attitude towards life, right attitude towards your work in life, Ishvara Arpanam, offering of everything to Bhagavan and taking things as prasadam. So Sat Karmani, it is called in Sanskrit. Sat Karmani, which good actions, Sat Gunaha, healthy values, virtues, all of this is important. And Sat Bhavana is healthy attitude towards everything in creation. So all of these three things, if I imbibe in my life, then I follow the sadhana chatushtaya. What happens? Then the next topic is tattva, tatas tattvavivekasya adhikarino bhavanti. Then people become qualified for the pursuit of knowledge. And then what is this pursuit of knowledge? So now this is a topic, that pursuit of knowledge is called tattvavivekaḥ. So Tattvabodha is the name of the text. Here he says, tattvavivekaḥ kaḥ. What is this inquiry into truth? When we talk about inquiry into truth, what is it? And in Tattvabodha, he gives it very succinctly, very short sentence. He says, ātmā satyaṁ tadanyat sarvaṁ mithya. Very simple. He just puts it in this. Very simple, but requires unfoldment, sometimes years of unfoldment. If you understand this one line, you got it, enlightenment. So in one little line, ātmā satyam and tadanyat sarvaṁ mithyeti. We will see what that means, in this class. So Viveka, we have to understand tattvavivekaḥ. What is Vivekaḥ? So there are two words in Sanskrit, vichara and Vivekaḥ. And they look very alike because they come from the same Sanskrit root, to sift out. But what is the difference? Vivekaḥ means you are sifting out between two things that are confused. Like, there is a legendary swan. It is not like our white swans we see, but legendary swan, Hamsa, magical Hamsa. And it was known to discriminate between milk and water. So in its beak, it is able to sift out the milk from water, even though both look very alike, right? If you mix milk and water, many packets in India are like that. The runny milk you get, I'm sure they're mixed with, mixed with a lot of water. If that swan, magical swan, is able to sift out the milk from the water, that is called Vivekaḥ. It is separation between one thing from another, but both look exactly the same. And here, this is what we are doing with tattvavivekaḥ. It is not separating milk, okay? That's an example. We are separating two things that look like one, but actually we are confusing the reality with what is not so real. So here, if you can take an example of an actor playing the role of a beggar. That's a very good example to understand. So here we know actor is only one person, right? And the actor, he should know that he is separate from the beggar role or for any of the role he plays. But the beggar and actor, if they get mixed up, what? Actor identifies with the beggar role or with any other role. So the beggar is only a costume that this actor wears. This mix-up happens many things in life, actually. And this is where tattvavivekaḥ comes into the picture. Because one has to inquire into the reality of everything we face. When we talk about tattva, it means the truth. The truth means, can there be two truths? Can there be three truths? There's only one truth. So the truth has to be seen very clearly by the intellect. It is not perceptible via the senses. So what the Shastra does very beautifully is question your perception of reality. See, unless you question your perception, question your reality that you think you face, then inquiry will not be done. So the questioning first begins with, what is the reality I'm facing daily? So the first question is, we need reality defining words. So Shastra, now it's a technical section. We need to understand certain reality defining words. What is the reality of a thing? And what is the truth? Reality is the tattva of a thing. And reality-defining, revealing words generally are for day-to-day transactions. Because ātmā, when we talk about consciousness, limitless truth, Brahman, doesn't need words. It's beyond words. So here, words are for us to understand. And in the Shastra, there are 4 reality-revealing words. 4 words which deal with how I see the world, how I perceive myself, how I see objects. In fact, the truth is, once I recognize the truth, there is only one reality, in fact. But from the perspective of consciousness, it doesn't see anything else. There's only consciousness. Where is the second thing? If we could talk to Brahman, we cannot, but Brahman, if we could interact with Brahman or ātmā, and we ask Brahman, what is your experience? What will Brahman say if it could talk? I don't see duality. I don't see multiplicity. There's only me. I'm the only thing that exists in this universe. That is from the view of Parabrahman, of supreme reality. From the perspective of consciousness, it's called Paramartika Satyam. Everything else is mithya. This is where the 2 words come in. Satyam, mithya. That one reality is satyam, everything else is mithya. And we'll understand what this mithya means in a unfoldment of this reality words. So satyam, let us see satyam. What is the definition of satyam? Satyam is what exists. Okay. First understanding whatever exists is called satyam. So what is the truth? What exists? Anything. If I take, a pot exists. If I say this pot is, then pot exists. If I say phone is, then you can't see it, but phone exists, okay? On Zoom, it doesn't seem to exist, but it is existing. Phone exists. Pot is. Phone is. The tree is. The light is. That isness is called satyam. That isness is existence, and that isness is non-negatable. Problem is, we attribute the isness to the object. We say the object has got a reality. So satyam understanding is that which is non-negatable. We'll see, we have to inquire into this. The isness is real. Then there is another word for reality, which is anritam. Anritam is another word in Sanskrit used to describe reality. And anritam means knowledge, false knowledge. It's faulty knowledge. It is born out of, a means of knowledge, perception, but it is wrong understanding. Like, I use the eyes to see objects in the world, and generally I recognize if there's enough light and my eyes work, I see that object clearly, and that is called correct knowledge, right? It takes place in my mind. What is false knowledge? We have lots of examples. A mirage is false knowledge. It looks like water. I see it with my eyes. Same pramana. I look at the mirage with my eyes, but what I see water, but when I go closer to it, is it water? There's no water there. That is called false knowledge. Like rope snake also. I see something, dimly lit room, some kind of, dangly thing there. I can mistake it for even a garland, but generally we mistake for something negative. That's how the human mind works. I could also mistake it for something positive. Actually, I could see a garland, but who sees garland? We see snake. So the Shastra uses the example of snake. So when I see the snake, what happens? False knowledge takes place. And actually, I'm reacting to the knowledge in my mind. Am I really reacting to a snake externally? No, there's no snake. So I see the snake in my mind, and I'm jumping out of fear because I perceive a snake. That is called anritam. It is false knowledge. Any kind of hallucinations, they're also seen as real. So sometimes this clear, we call it clear false perception. Clear, it's very clear, but it's false perception. And because of that clear false perception, I have a lot of difficulties in life. There's a lot of projections on what is reality, and I am jumping at things in my head. So this is another reality we experience. It is called anritam. We don't really see what really is. And we don't question many times also that we could be wrong. We take that as satyaṁ, right? That is satyaṁ. So anritam is, a word to explain that experience we have of reality. Then there is another experience of something which we don't have generally in the waking state, unless we're a bit, we're off, bit mental. The other experience we have is called tucham, something totally non-existent. So in the Anritam, it is semi-knowledge, because I'm seeing something, but I'm projecting something on it. Here, it is totally non-existent, like square, circle. All of these are totally square. You can't have a square circle. In the Shastra, example used is rabbit's horn. So unless they genetically engineer rabbits, the rabbits don't have horns. So this is something, when do I have experience of tucham? Sometimes I may have experience of things that are totally non-existent in the dream state. So I may see things which don't, because in the dream state, what happens? I mix up the waking reality with all the vasanas inside me. So they get all jumbled up. And in the dream, I project a world that doesn't really exist and things that don't exist. So I could see really weird stuff in the dream, which is tucham, totally non-existent. So this is the three, reality words, satyam, anritam, tucham, which the Shastra uses to describe our experience of things, to explain our experience of things. But there's a very beautiful section that we have in an Upanishad called Chandogya Upanishad, where this Uddalaka, the father, very interestingly, in those days, the parents used to teach the children. So the parents become the gurus, and they become the gurus when the kids ask. Otherwise, they remain, parents. But here, Uddalaka is the father, Shvetaketu and Uddalaka. Shvetaketu is a very arrogant chap, because he was sent to the Gurukulam, sent to study with his guru, and he learnt everything. So he comes back, after having studied with the guru in the Gurukulam, and he wants to brag to his father, I know everything. And father starts testing him. Do you know that knowledge by which all is as well known? And because of his arrogance, what does he say to the father? No, maybe the teacher didn't know that, he didn't teach me. He doesn't say that. So it is, that type of, he had this, Swamiji used to say, he used to act it out. He used to show Shvetaketu coming back from Gurukulam, walking all proud and saying, I've done it, I've got everything. So he asks very interesting question, because he shifts Shvetaketu's understanding of Satyam. So we know, and what does he use? In those days, all the rishis must have had a lot of clay pots. So in those days, this is what they used to shift the understanding of reality. So he shows the son this clay pot, simple clay pot, and he asks, what is the reality, Shvetaketu, of this clay pot? So Shvetaketu says, clay pot is satyam. He says clay pot is satyam. Why? Because he just heard satyam is what exists, right? So it is an object of my eyes. Clay pot exists. But Uddalaka has a problem with that. The father cannot, he has an issue with that. What is his issue? He asks the son, if the clay pot is satyam, then what about the clay? Is the clay satyam or the clay pot satyam? So we know now, what is the definition of satyam? That which cannot be negated is satyam. So can the clay pot be negated? We have to see that. Clay pot can be negated. Why? Because from the perspective of clay, where is pot? So clay pot on one level is satyam, but when you ask from the level of clay, what is satyam? Clay will say, I am satyam. Pot is name and form. So it's very interesting. Does pot have clay as an attribute? Attributes are like adjectives. We say adjectives are attributes. They're used to distinguish one object from another object of the same species. Okay, so I mean, this is a lot of technical, but you see how, beautifully the rishis have unfolded. So let's take a species. What species? The species we know very well, which is human beings. We'll take a man. Within that species, we'll take a gender. We'll take a man. So what is an adjective? Let's add some adjectives to a man. We say tall man, short man, fat man, thin man. So what does the adjective do? The adjective distinguishes one man from another because of the adjective. We can do that with any species on this planet. And again, the Shastra uses, idea of, uses lily, white lily, blue lily, red lily, distinguishes all the different lilies. But Uddalaka asks the question, if it is clay pot, then clay becomes adjective of pot, right? Clay becomes adjective of pot, but is it really an adjective? Because we have to ask, can the clay pot exist without clay? Can the tall man exist without being a man? It is the clay is called substantive. So now his idea of satyaṁ is away from clay pot. What happens to Shvetaketu's mind? Clay pot is not as satyaṁ as you think it is, because it's negatable. Clay pot is negated to clay. If pot is satyaṁ, it has to exist independently by itself. Can it exist without clay? It cannot. Clay is the source of clay pot. Clay is the basis for clay pot. And this is where all the inquiry actually begins. Clay, our language itself is wrong. Clay is substantive. It should be potty clay. Anything potty clay, even if you take gold, we have different ornaments of gold, right? Should it be gold chain? No. The adjective should change, attribute should change. It should be chainy gold, bangly gold, earringy gold, right? Gold is the substantive, but we've, whole thing is ulta. We've done it different way. So he says here, just by a lump of clay, all that is made of clay becomes known. This, this yatta is a very, very famous thing as well. There's no substance like clay pot at all, in fact. It is not substantial. There is only clay. Clay alone. See, when I touch pot, what do I touch? I think I'm touching pot. In fact, I'm touching clay. Where is the pot substance? I'm touching clay. So pot, our rishis say, is word and meaning. They said it's only name and the meaning of the word and meaning. Because the weight, when I hold the pot, the weight of the pot is nothing but weight of clay. And this clay can take so many forms. Like I said, liddy clay, platy clay. It can have so many different forms. But the substance is what? It is one. And why is it important to understand clay pot? See, I've got a little clay pot. This was given by Swamiji. Big clay pots, lots of clay pots, playing with pots. Rishis used to play with a lot of clay pots. So here, why is it important? Are we examining pottery here? It's not a pottery class. It is to see that the whole Jagat, the universe, is like this. There is no substance to the Jagat. The names and forms and functions that we see are all dependent reality. They are dependent on something else. That so beautifully unfolded. We cannot see that's the problem, what they're dependent on. So every example is limited. Here I can see pot is dependent on clay, right? Very easy for me to see that. Here, the whole universe, the rishis have seen for themselves cognitively, is dependent on something for its existence, something else. So, this this something we're going to see. This something is explained, unfolded, because this something which everything is dependent on is the real satyaṁ. And that something is imperceptible. So even though the examples are used of gold and the ornament world, gold ornamental world of gold, or the clay world, all the different names and forms of clay, we cannot see this one truth, which is the satyam of the whole universe. But even with the name and form, we can see here, I lose the sight of the substance of the pot because I look at the name and form alone. So my vision is in the world, my vision is rooted in what? It is rooted in names and forms and functions. So here it's very, very interesting. The Shastra brings in a fourth reality word, which is the key to understanding the truth of the universe, the truth of Ishvara, and the truth of yourself. So it asks, the pot we cannot say is totally non-existent because I see the name and form pot. And if I pour water into this pot, if there's no leaks, it can have some use, utility. All things in the world have name, form, utility. So I cannot say it is totally non-existent. At the same time, now, Uddalaka has explained to his son, Shvetaketu, the pot is also not totally existent. So it is not totally non-existent because I can fill it with water. At the same time, the reality of pot is clay, so it is not totally it is not existent because the pot resolves into clay. It's not totally existent. So pot is not also false perception, anritam. Can I say this now? The light is there, pot is clearly seen. I cannot say it is also anritam, my projection, right? So that is why, actually very interesting, we never use the word illusion. World is not an illusion. Illusion makes it seem as if I'm projecting something which is not there. So pot is not illusion. I use the pot. But it's not totally false. It is not totally non-existent, and it is not totally existent. I'm in trouble now. I don't know what the pot is. What is the reality of this pot? So here it is very, very important word. The pot is called an appearance. The pot is an appearance. It is an appearance of clay. So the rishis brought in another word, reality word, to explain our experience of the world. The pot has a name. I call it pot. The pot has a function. It can hold something. The pot has a form. So it is as though real, and that as though reality is called mithya. Mithya means it is neither absolutely real, nor is it absolutely unreal, nor is it false. It is dependently real. This name and form of pot depends on what for its existence? It depends on clay for existence. So the rishis say, if you understand the whole jagat is mithya, it is all various names and forms and functions. Every name and form will have some utility. It is all name, form, and function, but can anything exist independently? You can break down any object, actually. Anything you take a tree, you break it down. What is a tree? It is made of parts, leaves, trunk, branches. It has so many roots. And then we call that whole name and form a tree. But when you break the parts down further, they also resolve into less and less, right? And finally, where do you end up? Atoms, particles. In fact, what we're not seeing clearly. We're seeing solid, but the whole world is actually vibrational atoms on one level. And there, I'm sitting on things vibrating, atoms. Probably 99% or so space, actually, we're sitting on, if we're sitting. So imagine, the world I think is solid, is not as solid. That is called mithya. And the rishis used to say, if you understand this of the world, all your problems vanish. Everything is solved in one shot. Why? Because the reality you give to the world, the suffering that you experience in the world is not as real as you think it is. That suffering is mithya. So satyaṁ means that is the unnegatable, immovable truth. And everything resolves into that satyam. There is only one satyam, the basis for this whole existence. Even atoms, particles, everything resolve into the one truth. That truth is revealed in our Shastra as limitless consciousness. Another example that we use from our day-to-day life that the rishis used to have is the dream state. See, when I dream, beautiful to see that. When I dream, what happens? I experience things in the dream. I go through all the emotions. See, I see a tiger in the dream. I'm being chased by the tiger. In the dream, I experience fear. I experience all the emotions. I experience everything. And what happens when I wake up? Suddenly I wake up. What happens? The dream, was it real? It was not real, because that was a false tiger I was running from in my dream. I was being chased by a false tiger, but my emotions were real. The dream experience when I wake up is negated as false. I realize there was no real tiger at all. It is only an imagination. It was only a reality for a length of time. So when I wake up, from the standpoint of the waker, the dream is falsified. We say it's falsified. The dream is, when we falsify something, it is called mithya. So dream is falsified when I wake up to the reality. Time is also relative in the dream. I can experience a whole lifetime in the dream, right? I go through all the problems in the dream, or I go through all the joys and the sorrows, and I have a different role in the dream. Suddenly what happens? I wake up in the morning. Only 4 hours or 5 hours sleep I had. Whole lifetime is gone in that dream. Where is time in dream? Time is also false in dream. So in dream, it is called swakale satyavat bhati. The dream appears to be real in its own time, and it appears to be real only for a certain time. When do I realize it's not so real? When I wake up, I recognize, my God, all the suffering I went through in that dream, not just suffering. What about the joy I experienced? I experienced also joy in the dream. It is all falsified. And this is what the rishis say is our waking state. Our waking state also is a long drawn out dream. When do we wake up to this dream? So we have, ways of waking up. The first way of waking up is in knowledge. When I wake up in knowledge, I can wake up within the dream and be free. And I falsify the dream. That is called enlightenment, self-realization. I can wake up within this dream. And another way I wake up to the reality of this life, which is not so real as I think, is when I leave the body. And one day or other, we all have to exit. When the landlord says, get out, I'm only a tenant, remember, in this form. I don't own this form. I've not even rented it. The landlord has given me for free. I'm holidaying for free in this form, enjoying. And that landlord one day is going to say, vacate, get out, enough. And when that happens, where is everything? Where is the attachment? Where is all the relationship? Where are all the problems? Where is everything when we leave? So that is also, it is a dream. Waking up to the dream, we don't want to see, we call death waking up, actually. It's very interesting. We think death is dying, but here in the Shastra, death is waking up. So wake up either while living in the body, or you wake up after you die, when everything is taken away suddenly. You realize, my God, all the things I was attached to, do we carry anything with us when we go? Do I exit? poor Egyptians, they thought you did. You know, if you think the ancient Egyptians, they would bury their mummies with all the jewelry and all the pots. You see the mummified, you know, London British Museum. They bury, you know, they had this idea that you need this for the afterlife. But those things, objects are, when we open the mummy's coffin, objects are still there, right? So they don't take the objects with them. They're still there. We take zilch with us, carry absolutely nothing. Only we carry our karma. Whatever we have done in this life goes with us. So here, now going back to our understanding, this understanding is this reality that we give to the world, and this world of pot world, names and forms of clay. We give this reality. What do we give the reality? We call it satyaṁ reality. We call it absolute truth, but it is actually incidental. All the names and forms, like in the dream, they vanish. Look at our lives. How many people have vanished in our lives? We've interacted with them. We've lived with them. We've talked with them. We've dined with them. We've done so many things with so many people in our lives. What has happened to them? Suddenly they're gone. It's like imagination, memory. That is called mithya. And all they live on as how? They live on as memories in our brain. They live on only as memories. So this mithya world is like that. Everything is just an appearance. It is an appearance on the one reality. For anything to have an appearance, for anything to appear on something, you need a basis for the appearance, right? Like for a movie to appear on the screen, basis is screen. For the movie to appear, you need the screen. So here also, this movie of the universe, there is a screen called Brahman. That is what we're heading towards. That screen is Satyam. That is the only reality. And the rishis, that's why the rishis said, Ekam eva advitiyam. There is only one without a second in this whole universe. There's only one without a second. So now they're counting. Forgive all the mathematicians here in the group, but their counting is very different. What is rishis counting then? Rishis counting is very different. They count what? One pot plus one clay pot plus one clay lid plus one clay glass plus one clay any other object. What does it equal? Does it equal three? Three clay objects? Four clay objects? No. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 1. That is called divine arithmetic. That is called non-duality. There's only this. And Mritika eva satyam, that is what Uddalaka finally says. There is no second thing at all. And this is called tattva. Tattva, to understand tattva, tattva means the reality, the truth. So everything, the truth of everything, the tattva of everything is only one independent truth. It does not depend on the names and forms for existence. All the names and forms depend on it for its existence. So very beautifully it is, unfolded in the level of clay and pot. Now let us bring it down to level of our own selves. I have this name and form. I also have a name and form, and I'm useful to some people at least. Maybe people say, oh, you're useless, but I am useful for something. So I have a name and form and utility also. But have I ever questioned what makes this body come alive? What makes this, enlivens this body? Because I know one thing, when this body dies, when we call death, then something must leave the body for the body to go back to the elements and elementals. So I know that there is something, and we'll see that in later verses, but here the Shastra says that there is a truth that enlivens also this form, and that truth on the individual level, it's given another name. On the, it's the same thing. On the macrocosm level, it is called Brahman. On the individual level, it is called ātmā, but they're the same. So ātmā, Brahman, is now the truth of this whole universe. Every other name and form is dependent on Atma for its existence. There's a very beautiful, now I go to Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ on the verse 127th verse. Adi Shankaracharya says, Yef paśyati svayaṁ sarvaṁ, yam na paśyati kaścana, yaścetayati buddhyādi, na tadyaṁ cetayatyayam. He says here, which this ātmā itself sees everything, but which nobody can see. It is the one that illumines the intellect and everything else, but it cannot be illumined by anything itself. So it sees, but nothing else can see it. It illumines, nothing else can illumine it. This is the beauty of it. It is the unseen, all-pervasive, imperceptible. It is the essence of Brahman, essence or the truth. So he says here, this is the one thing that is existent here. And he goes on to say in the 237th verse, ataḥ param brahma sadadvitīyaṁ viśuddhavijñānaghanaṁ nirañjanam prashantamadhyanta-vihīnamakriyam nirantarananda-dरसस ataḥ param brahma sadadvitīyaṁ viśuddhavijñānaghanaṁ nirañjanam. So this, he says, this universe is the supreme highest truth, which is Sat. There is only one truth. It is the one real thing without a second. It is Vishuddha, pure. Vishuddha means pure, untainted. It is one without a second. Untainted, essence of all knowledge, unstained, and it is prashantam. Very beautiful word, not just shantam. It is absolute peace. There is no disturbance in that consciousness at all. The nature of absolute peace. And adyanta vihinam. So it does not have a beginning. It does not have an end. It exists in 3 periods of time. That is what is called satyaṁ. It exists in all 3 periods of time. And just these verses from these 127, that section, Adi Shankaracharya in Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ, he describes, I mean, you cannot describe ātmā, but he points to ātmā, lakshanas, through certain words. So he says in that 128th verse as well, Yena vishvamidam vyaptam yam na vyapnoti kinchana abharupamidam sarvaṁ yam bhantyam anubhatyayam. By which the whole universe is pervaded, which does not, which nothing can pervade. It's interesting. The universe is pervaded by that, but nothing can pervade this. It shines, and all this universe shines as a reflection of it. This is that. So again, like natatra suryo bhati, we say that that's light. What is this light? We show that light as in Aarti, in front of the light of all lights, it lights up that very light. So this is what he's saying here. The whole universe is lit up by that consciousness. This consciousness lends existence to everything. It is the one reality, the one truth, the witness of everything in this universe. It is what makes even the physical body function. Adi Shankaracharya in the 129th verse, he says, the presence of this Atma within the physical body gives life to all the functions, the organs. I mean, look at the miracle taking place, the heart beating, the liver, the kidney, the mind to think, the thoughts, everything it keeps in its, own activities. That is the power within this physical body. That is the I, the source of the I, which is always shining. Which is always shining in this body. I am. That I am. Through my life, from the birth, it is always shining. And it is that I. If you look, how many years we've had on this planet, Most of us have gone through at least 30, 40 years, right? Most. How many years? From the time I could remember that I till this moment, has that I ever changed? Everything else has changed, right? My body has changed. I had nice, long, flowing black hair. Now it's all gray, going off. Teeth are fallen out. The body has got thin, fat. All sorts of changes have happened. But what has been witnessing all the changes through all the stages of my life? That I has never left me, right? It has been there from my childhood. It's been through my youth. It is middle age, and it will continue being in old age as well. That I never changes. And that I, the source of that I, is consciousness. That is called ātmā. So, as I've said before, we are not human beings having spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having human experience. It is a question of shift of vision that is required, because we are trapped in all the appearances, names and forms and utility functions we take as absolutely real. And now we understand what is the reality. The vision should shift. It is mithya. It is false and true at the same time. Very strange. It is true from one level, but when I look at it deeper, it is not so true. And that separation, do I have to separate clay from pot by breaking the pot? Do I have to separate in anything physically I have to do to the pot? No. Where does the separation happen? The separation happens cognitively. So I don't have to leave the world to understand it is mithya. I don't have to run away from things of the world to understand the reality. This is the beauty of Advaita Vedānta. We don't have to escape from the world. Many spiritual traditions say, oh, you have to escape. You have to, world is, worldly and spiritual. There's always a dichotomy, split. Don't get involved in the world. World is false. World is illusion. World is not real. Don't have worldly ambitions. Here we never say world is separate from spiritual. If clay is all pervasive, it pervades all the names and forms of the clay world, right? So where can I run where consciousness is not? If I run away from something, consciousness is also there. So I keep trying to escape from things, people, situations. Consciousness follows wherever, because it doesn't follow, it is there already. Wherever I go is consciousness. So the separation of reality only happens here. We've seen all the reality words now. The separation happens in my mind only. Whole Jagat is like this. Whole universe is like this. And this is what we call tattvavivekaḥ. The Ishvara also, there is only one Ishvara, the truth of Ishvara. If Ishvara was separate from me, then there would be two things. But we know, so this is, if we say big pot is Ishvara, this is tiny pot, this is me, okay? Both the reality of the big pot, reality of tiny pot, Jiva, is what? Clay. So clay is the substantive. Same way, consciousness is substantive. It is changeless. It does not change in 3 periods of time. It always exists in all 3 periods of time. And this is understanding this truth, assimilating this truth. What happens? There will be no more sorrow. It is linked to that. The sorrow only comes when I take myself to be a separate pot. I don't see my, if I take myself to be a separate pot, how will sorrow come? Then if I think I'm the small pot, I see the big pot, what will happen? Oh, look at that big pot. I can fit into that big pot. That pot is so big. It can hold so much. I'm only tiny, weeny pot. So the comparisons happen. And look, this little pot is unfortunately cracked as well. So I'm a cracked pot. This one is a nice, full pot. All of this, whole life is comparing, because limited. My limitations, and I don't ever look at smaller pots than this. So I'll only look at the bigger pots in life, right? Something bigger I will focus on. But there are many pots which are smaller, and they may have even more defects. So like this, we all take ourselves to be various sizes, various shapes, various capacities, various talents, and we suffer with the limitations of that pot. Pot will have limitations. Pot will have limitations, but the substantial is nothing but clay. So everything is only the clay jagat alone. So this is called Jivan Mukti, the pot that realizes I am not this limited to this name and form. That pot, it recognizes itself. Then it is a Jivan Mukta. It is a free being, free pot while existing as pot. It does not need to be broken to find out. It does not need to be damaged or die to find out. It can find out immediately. So this is, how the texts unfold ātmā. And the next question now in the Tattvabodha, which we'll see with the Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ verses, he asks, ātmā kaḥ. Again, he asks, what is this ātmā? And he gets an answer, because the first is explaining ātmā as it is, understanding ātmā as it is. In this question, what the author does is negate what ātmā is not. So first he explains this consciousness, then he negates what ātmā is not. So here we'll see now, stula sukshma karana sharirad vyatiriktaha. It is not the subtle body. It is not the causal body. It is different from all these bodies. It is different from the 5 koshas. So all the methodologies of unfoldment in Vedānta come up in the next section. And then we will see how Adi Shankaracharya unfolds also in Vivekacūḍāmaṇiḥ. So with that, I think I will stop here. Next week, I have a retreat, so I will not be able to take the class. And a week after, I will be in India. But when I get to India and I settle, I will resume the sessions again from Rishikesh. So I will be in Rishikesh. I will let you all know. And I will keep these sessions going as much as I can from India, because it suits India and UK. And if you can join in person, otherwise recordings will also always be shared. So Hari Om, wish all a very interesting day ahead. Try and inquire into this. It's very, very interesting to see. Whole world will look different for you now, like virtual reality. It is virtual reality. So Hari Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om. Namaste. Any questions, you can always write. I will answer. Okay. Hari Om.